when it comes to planning for our retirement, one of the most important questions we all have to ask ourselves is, when should I retire? Yes, the financial aspects of preparing for retirement are incredibly important, and many of us spend 95% of our effort on, do I have enough money? Have I reached that benchmark? But that also comes with some danger if you over-focus on the financial side of things, because it's very common for the goalpost, for the milestones that we're trying to achieve financially, to keep moving. Maybe the number's 800,000. I'm just making up a number. And when you get to 800,000, you think, boy, it'd be nice to have a cushion. Let's go to $1 million. And you know what? When you get to $1 million, maybe the goalpost keeps moving, and then you're going to want to have $1.25 million. Now, the good news is, the bigger of a base that we accumulate, the easier it is to bump things up by 33% or 25%. Saving your first $250,000 is much different than going from $750,000 to $1 million. So that's the good news. But the bad news is our clocks keep ticking, our biological clocks. And it's just human nature to think that the way I feel today, my energy levels, my health, I'm about to be 60 years old, and it's just natural for me to think, this is how I'm going to feel for the next 20 years. But we know that that's not true. Our health we can lose our health at any time. And so we need to be very cautious, not just of the financial side of things, but also on the chronological and the time side of things. The reality is, when we're 60 years old, which I'm about to become, most of us have fewer than 1,000 weeks of healthy active time remaining. And from a financial standpoint, we know that most retirees do not spend down their money at a rate that they think they're going to. In fact, BlackRock, which is one of the country's largest asset managers, they manage over $10 trillion. They did a study of their clients, and what they found is the majority of their clients, 18 years into retirement, still had 80% of the money that they retired with or more. So it would really be a shame to continue to postpone retirement to save up money that we're never going to use in retirement. So we have to balance that, because there are some scary statistics out there. Right? The reality is, even with Medicare, once we hit 65, a lot of people don't retire until 65 because they're concerned about healthcare insurance. And here in the United States, our healthcare insurance largely comes from our employer. And if we retire before we qualify for Medicare, where are we going to get that healthcare insurance? And it's an important question. It's outside of the scope of this, but fortunately, there are ways for us to get our healthcare insurance. It's not inexpensive, but we can buy it. But even once we hit 65, the health care costs that are not covered by Medicare, according to Fidelity, at 65, they say that the average person should budget $150,000 for the costs that are not going to be covered by Medicare. So that's a big number. And so there is this scary information on the financial side of things, and do I have enough money to save? And that just naturally causes us to continue to postpone our decision on when we retire. But the reason I'm making today's video is I also want you to balance another dwindling resource that unfortunately is dwindling more quickly than many of us think, and that's our health, the time that we have healthy, active time in front of us. And so I want to do a thought experiment with you. Most of us have had the experience where we're driving down the road and we hear a siren coming behind us. We look in our rearview mirror, we see it's an ambulance coming, and we pull over to the side to let that ambulance go by. And many of us, myself included, say a quick prayer for who's ever in the back of that ambulance, that they get the care that they need. But the reality is, someday I'm not going to be the person pulling over to let the ambulance go by. Someday I'm going to be that person in the back of the ambulance. And I want you to just think about that if if that was you in the back of the ambulance, let's say 10 years from now, 15 years from now, how would you feel about your current decision on, when you're planning on retiring, or building up the buffer, or working just one more year, which is four of the most dangerous words for soon-to-be retirees, is just one more year. You're in the back of that ambulance. Let's say you got unfortunate, and you're in your late 60s or your early 70s, and you're not sure if you're going to make it or not. How would you feel about that decision to postpone retirement, to add another $250,000 buffer to that? I think many of us would look and say, I wish I had had time. I wish I had had more healthy years to pursue my dreams. And I use that as an analogy because I think for many of us, we're not trying to necessarily optimize our bank account. We're trying to optimize on our life and our life experiences and the impact, the hopefully positive impact we can have on people that we love and causes that we care about. There's a similar story. The CEO of the largest bank in the United States, a gentleman by the name of Jamie Dimon, who's the chief executive, the head of JP Chase, he had a serious heart issue, and he was recently interviewed by the Wall Street Journal on YouTube. And the journalist was asking about his recent scare with cancer and also a potential heart issue. And he clarified for the journalist, it wasn't a scare with cancer. He actually had cancer. Unfortunately, he's in remission and he's beaten cancer. But the heart issue, he says that when he was being wheeled in for surgery, in his case, what he was dealing with it was a coin toss, whether or not he was going to survive. And he says as he was being wheeled into the surgery, he thought to himself, if I don't make it out of surgery, I have no regrets. And frankly, I was surprised because that's obviously a very big job with huge responsibilities. And for somebody that's carried that burden, being the CEO of JP Chase, I think as I record this, he's been at the helm for, I believe, 18 years. It's been a long time. I could be wrong on that, but for sure a decade or longer. For somebody like that not to have regrets, I think that's the situation that we all want to be in. And Jamie has performed at the highest level. But you know what? We're all performing at our highest level for our families, for the people that we care about. And we all want to have the same thing. We want to be able to look back with no regrets. So should you retire early, think about optimizing on life. Think about this study that BlackRock did that said the majority of people don't spend much of their assets at all. Now, I don't know how much you need for retirement, and I would encourage you to work with a financial advisor that's a fiduciary to you 100% of the time to come up with, what's a reasonable number that I need to save in order to be comfortable for retirement. I would give a caution because the tool that financial advisors like myself use is something called a Monte Carlo simulation. And what we're trying to do is, what's the probability that you'll never run out of money, right? That's the goal. We don't want our clients to ever worry. And so the gold standard is, you have a 97 or a 99% likelihood of never running out of money. But I do want to share with you that, at 80% likelihood of never running out of money, the difference between getting to 80% and getting to 97% could be you working an additional 3, 4, 5, maybe even 7 years. So is it worth giving up 5 years of your healthy active time to go from a probability of 80% to 97%? And remember, what 80% probability means is 80% of the time you're fine. In over half of the cases, you're probably going to die with more money than you had started with. Again, this isn't financial advice. I don't know the situation. Work with a financial advisor, figure out what that is for you. But would you rather have a 20% likelihood that you have to modify some things during retirement, or 100% likelihood of giving up 3, 4, or 5 years of your healthiest, youngest years in retirement. And that's a decision that only you can make. But what I will share is, as we go through life, these things aren't set in stone, right? We don't know what tax rates are going to be in 2025. In theory, the Jobs and Tax Cut Act is set to expire at in 2025, and then things go back to the old tax laws, which is going to be a higher tax rate. We don't even know what that rate's going to be. We don't know what inflation is going to be. We certainly don't know how long I'm going to live, or how long you're going to live, or what our health journey is going to be along the way. So there's a lot of uncertainty in these plans that are shared. If you're not careful, they can be shared as having more certainty than they have. But what you do want, what the plans do give you, it gives you some clarity and some confidence. And you want that confidence, because if you don't have that confidence on how much you can spend in retirement, many people are going to sacrifice unnecessarily. They're not going to spend money that they could, and they could have had these adventures, these life-enhancing experiences, opportunities to do things with people that you love and support causes that you care about. You're likely going to sacrifice unnecessarily and not do those things unless you have a roadmap that says, you know what, I'm okay. I don't have 100% certainty, but in all likelihood, I'm okay, and I can spend this money guilt-free, and I can enjoy the journey. Or some people might overspend. I find that it's like 80% underspend, 20% overspend. And if you're overspending, you want to know that too, so that you can make some small tweaks along the way as opposed to a big tweak later. And speaking of enjoying the journey, retirement is a starting line. It's a starting line for a beautiful new chapter of your life. It's not a finish line, it's a starting line. But I want you to enjoy the journey up until you get to that starting line for retirement. And that's why I made this video here. 7 things to stop doing in your 50s and 60s to enjoy your journey more. Thanks for watching this video, and I'll see you in that one. Bye-bye.